The Checkpoints is presented by pharmaceutical company GM Pharma. The international rating agency Fitch has downgraded Georgia's sovereign rating outlook for the second time in 2024. In a review published on Friday, it is noted that the country retains its BB credit rating. However, the outlook for this rating has been revised from stable to negative. This marks the second downgrade this year, as in June 2024 the outlook was adjusted from positive to stable. Georgia's official international reserves increased by $39 million in November, reaching $4.1 billion. Despite the monthly reserve growth, Georgia's international reserves decreased by $999 million compared to the same period of the last year. Natia Turnava announced that the National Bank purchased $124.5 million via BMatch platform last month. The reason for the depreciation of the Georgian lari on November 28 was the decision made by the one-party parliament of the Georgian Dream to suspend the issue of opening negotiations with the European Union for 4 years, as announced by the newly reapproved Prime Minister. Following this, the exchange rate of the US dollar rose from 2.74 to 2.78. By the end of this week, the rate stood at 2.85 lari, decreased to 2.83 lari on December 5th, and as a result of today's trading, dropped to 2.77 lari. The Ministry of Finance has submitted the final draft of the 2025 budget to Parliament. According to the document, government allocations will increase by 895 million Georgian lari, reaching 27.9 billion Georgian lari, driven by increased funding for certain ministries. According to the third draft of the budget, the total amount of grants to be received from international organizations, foreign governments and foreign entities will decrease by 91 million Georgian lari compared to 2024 and is projected at around 60 million Georgian lari. Additionally, the grant plan in the budget has also been reduced compared to the second draft submission, with a decrease of 366,000 Georgian lari in this regard. Geostat published a report in November inflation, according to which prices increased by 1.3% year-on-year last month. According to Geostat, the prices of the largest consumer group, food, rose by 3.1% year-on-year. The National Bank of Georgia has issued an order for commercial banks regarding the increase of minimum reserve requirements in foreign currency. According to the order, it will come into force on December 19th. The Financial Stability Committee of the NBG decided to raise reserve requirements on foreign currency deposits by 5% on November 27th. According to the information published by NBG, the decision aims to ensure that existing foreign currency liquidity in banks does not transform into increased foreign currency lending. On December 5th, 2024, the National Bank of Georgia issued the first microbank license to Micro Business Capital (MBC), following the microbank licensing rules. Another microfinance organization, Crystal, has also applied for microbank status, as Nino Debdariani, the chairperson of the Association of Microfinance Organizations, told BMG. Crystal's application is still under review. In parallel with these events, protests continue in Tbilisi and almost all regions of Georgia. 500 demonstrators were arrested during protests related to the postponement of the EU accession process. In addition to the demonstrators, media representatives sustained significant injuries, and the government claims that several dozen police officers were also injured. So, this is the Checkpoints. Follow us on BMG.
This is the Checkpoints. I'm Elena Kwanchilashvili, author and the host of the show, and the Checkpoints team is ready to sum up Business and Economics Week for you. The Turkish company Enka won an international arbitration case concerning the termination of the Namakhvani hydropower plant construction project. The arbitration has ruled that Georgia must pay Enka $383 million in compensation, which is over billion lari. On September 2021, we issued a special situation statement announcing that our subsidiary Enka Renewables LLC had terminated the contract for the Namakhvani Cascade project in Georgia. The international arbitration process regarding the termination has now been completed. The decision confirms that our subsidiary rightfully terminated the contract, and the Georgian government has been ordered to pay approximately $383 million in compensation to our subsidiary, along with interest. Turkish media reporting, quoting the investor company. Enka has confirmed that once the compensation is received, the details will be shared with investors in a special situational statement. On September 2021, Enka Renewables announced the contract for the Namakhvani Cascade HPP project was being terminated following months of continuous protest by the local population and environmental activists. The Namakhvani HPP was being built in the Tskaltubo and Tsageri municipalities north of Kutaisi by a Turkish-Norwegian company, Enka Renewables LLC. Meanwhile, the National Agency for Public Procurement reports that the Georgian Ministry of Justice paid over 25 million lari to the international law firm White & Case, which presented Georgian side in the arbitration dispute. According to the documents, the case was led by lawyer Charles Nairak on behalf of the company, whose fee for participating in the disputes was over $1,000 per hour. The Georgian government has lost an international arbitration dispute with the Turkish company Enka Insat, which was implementing the Namakhvani HPP project. Enka Insat itself has released information about this. According to the company, the compensation imposed on Georgia totals $383 million, which exceeds 1 billion lari at the current exchange rate. The arbitration dispute followed Enka's statement made on September 2021. Enka Renewables LLC issued a special statement announcing that they had terminated the contract for the Namakhvani Cascade HPP project in Georgia due to the state's breach of the investment agreement and the creation of force majeure. Irakli Kobakhidze said on December 2nd, 2024, that the arbitration dispute was continuing, although he also said that Georgia may have to pay multi-million-dollar compensation. The Ministry of Justice has not yet commented on the case. Enka Renewables LLC was building the 433 megawatt Namakhvani hydroelectric power plant Cascade in Tskaltubo municipality, with the project scheduled to be commissioned in 2025-2026. The company was preparing to begin construction work on the $800 million Namakhvani hydroelectric power plant during the aforementioned period, and had already invested up to $100 million in preliminary work. On this background, the Ministry of Justice is increasing the budget by 1 million lari to 66 million lari for hiring lawyers in international courts overall, according to the National Agency for State Procurement. As of the document, 65 million lari was allocated for hiring lawyers in 2024, which was not enough, so an additional 1 million lari was added decided late this year. It is unknown whether this is related to the decision of the International Chamber of Commerce Arbitration Tribunal in favor of the company Enka. As a result, the Georgian government will be required to pay $383 million to Enka in compensation for force majeure and breach of contract in the Namakhvani project. The government's interests in this dispute were defended by the international company White & Case, whose fees paid to its lawyers in this dispute have so far amounted to 25 million lari. According to the government, the discussions on the case are ongoing. Amendments were made to the appropriations bills approved by the 2024 annual budget, and 1 million lari was added to the existing 65 million lari for the procurement of legal services. Over 61 million lari has been spent since January 2024. Taking into the account the above, the remaining resources for the reimbursement of services to be provided by the end of the year, according to the submitted invoices, and arbitration expenses within the framework of the current agreements are insufficient, and an additional 1 million lari is required, the Ministry of Justice stated. The Georgian government is involved in about a dozen investment disputes with a total in compensation claimed $1.7 billion. The Ministry of Finance writes about the risks arising from losing these disputes in the fiscal risk analysis document for the 2025 budget. The Georgian government is spending millions of lari on hiring lawyers in these arbitration disputes. Since 2020, the amount paid to lawyers has been 230 million lari, including the most expensive contract signed with the international law firm White & Case, for which the Ministry of Justice has paid 171 million lari since 2020. 31 million lari was paid for the services of the law firm RP, and 25 million lari was paid for hiring of Deckard. As of now, Georgia's arbitration disputes fall into two categories. One is investment disputes between international companies and the Georgian government, and the other disputes between the Georgian government and defaulting infrastructure contractors, mainly on road projects, who have failed to fulfill their obligations. Compensation required in several arbitration disputes. These are the following: Zaza Okuashvili versus Georgia. Compensation sought in the lawsuit is $328 million. Makti holder companies Telcel Wireless LLC and International Telcel Cellular LLC. Compensation sought in the lawsuit is $154 million. And Enka Renewables against Georgia. Compensation sought in the lawsuit is $383 million. What else was new in the economy in our brief overview?
Georgian President Salome Zurabishvili echoed the dispersal of December's three-night protests in Georgia. Tonight marks a troubling escalation. Peaceful demonstrations barely began when crackdown started. This is an attack on freedom of expression and the right to protest, basic right violated, not to mention the way people are arrested and treated once detained, she wrote on the platform X. According to the president, Georgian people demand their European future back. Across Georgia, people are rising against the Russian puppetry regime from the capital to the smallest towns. This is a movement unlike anything in our history. The message is clear: give me my vote back, give me my European future back, she said. It's clear to everyone that the opposition has been preparing not for elections but for the post-election period, aiming for disorder and public confrontations, stated Tbilisi Mayor Kaha Kaladze during municipal government meeting. Kaladze emphasized that Georgia's government is committed to safeguarding the interests of the country and its citizens. The government has the support and trust of vast majority of Georgian population, as demonstrated in the recent elections, where more than 1 million people voted for peace, prosperity, economic development and dignified European future. I want to thank these individuals once again. The Georgian government will champion our nation's interests and will not allow the implementation of scenarios scripted abroad by stateless agents who operate comfortably within our borders. The government has taken numerous steps to prevent this, some of which have been difficult and, I must admit, unpopular, but they have proven to be correct and are aimed at defending our country's interests. The information we have mandated to be transparent is available for anyone to review and analyze the ongoing processes, he noted. Georgian Prime Minister Irakli Kobakhidze on Wednesday said both domestic economy and exchange rate of national currency lari would stabilize on the backdrop of political instability and ongoing public protests against the government's suspension of European Union accession talks, adding the country was poised to achieve at least 9.5% growth by the end of the year. Kobakhidze highlighted the current economic growth rate was higher compared to the last year. Economic growth continues at a fast pace. The data from October shows an 11% growth rate, leading to an average of 10% economic growth over the past 10 months. We have double-digit economic growth this year, which is higher than last year. Of course, this process will continue, he said. The Prime Minister noted the several days of unrest might cause some temporary fluctuations in the exchange rate of lari. The lari will stabilize as it happened in the case of previous fluctuations. The exchange rate of the lari used to change for a few days, then return to its original value. It will be the same now. The exchange rate of the lari will stabilize. The economy will stabilize as well, he said. We'll have a very high level of economic growth. Last year's growth rate was 7.8%, and this year we anticipate an even greater increase. This growth is occurring amidst backdrop of radicalism, particularly during the election period, which has not been a calm environment, Kobakhidze added. In November 2024, the consumer price index increased by 0.7% compared to the previous month, while the annual inflation rate amounted to 1.3%. With regard to the annual core inflation, the price increased by 1.6%, while the annual core inflation without tobacco also amounted to 1.7%, according to the preliminary data from the National Statistics Office of Georgia. The annual inflation rate was mainly influenced by price change for the following groups: food and non-alcoholic beverages. The price in the group increased by 3.1%, contributing 1 percentage points to the overall annual inflation rate. Within the group, the prices increased for the following subgroups: vegetables, coffee, tea, cocoa, sugar, jam, honey, chocolate, confectionery, mineral water, soft drinks, fruit, vegetables, oils, fats, fruit and grapes, fish, bread, cereal, meat. At the same time, the price decreased for milk, cheese and eggs. Alcoholic beverages and tobacco. The price increased by 5.1%, with the relevant contribution of 0.34 percentage point to the overall annual inflation rate. The prices increased for both alcoholic beverages and tobacco. Communication. The price decreased by 12.9%, contributing 0.48 percentage point decrease to the overall inflation. Housing. Water, electricity, gas and other fuels. The price for the group decreased by 3.7%, contributing 0.32 percentage points decrease to the overall index. The price will lower for the subgroups of electricity, gas and other fuels, and actual rentals for housing. At the same time, the price increased for maintenance and repair of dwelling. Miscellaneous goods and services. The price for the group increased by 6.6%, contributing 0.35 percentage points to the overall index. Within the group, the price were higher mainly for the following subgroups: personal effects, insurance, financial services, and personal care. The National Bank of Georgia on Wednesday rejected misinformation circulating on social media regarding alleged restriction on foreign currency deposits and transfers at domestic commercial banks, emphasizing there were no limitations on conversion of deposits into foreign currency or on the transfers of funds abroad. The central bank reassured the public about the stability of banking sector, noting it had been strengthened by recent policies and positive macroeconomic trends. Domestic banks have sufficient buffers to withdraw even the most severe shocks. The total volume of liquid assets exceeds 18 billion lari and it's primarily held in foreign currency. There is no threat to deposit services, the NBG said. If necessary, banks have access to additional credit lines and can raise funds from foreign financial institutions. Furthermore, the NBG has various tools available to support the sector if the need arises, the body added. Furthermore, the central bank also said fluctuations of Georgian national currency lari were driven by current processes in comments that come amid political instability during ongoing protests in the country against the government's decision to suspend the European Union accession talks until 2028. Otherwise, stable inflows and strong fundamentals ensure stability in foreign exchange market, the bank said. The unit value index of agriculture products decreased by 4.1% compared to the previous quarter, according to the preliminary data from the National Statistics Office of Georgia. As of the document, the change was mainly due to a 22% decrease in the unit value of perennial crops, which contributed minus 7.36 percentage points to the total index change. Compared to the corresponding quarter of the previous year, the unit value index of agriculture products increased by 0.6%. The latter was largely caused by the 5.8% increase in the unit value of perennial crops, which contributed 1.88 percentage points to the total index change. In the same period, the unit value of non-perennial crops went down by 5.3%, by 0.05% for live animals and animal products, with the relevant contribution of minus 1.25 and 0.05 percentage points to the total index change, respectively.
From January to October this year, Georgia exported $45.3 million worth of nuts to the European Union, making a year-over-year increase of $7.4 million USD, or nearly 20%. Hazelnuts continue to be a key export product to the EU, but the industry still holds significant potential for growth. What steps can be taken to boost hazelnut exports from Georgia and support Georgian farmers in producing higher quality and larger quantities of hazelnuts? Additionally, what is the future of the sting bug problem and how can it be effectively managed? These questions were explored by the host of Business Evening in a discussion with Blay Lord, Director of Agro Origins, and Amiran Khajalia, Sales Manager at Agro Origins. Let's watch the interview.
Hello, gentlemen. Thank you very much for your time. It's a pleasure to host you here in the BMG studio to talk about nuts, which is one of the most important export products for Georgia, especially in the context of the European Union. So it's very nice to hear your perspective, especially you coming from the European side with the European experience. Blay, let me ask first of all about your presence in Georgia. As I know, you relocated here quite some time ago, and you executed a lot of projects in the nut industry. Let's summarize your experience and let's shed some light on the projects that you've executed.
Nice to meet here. I arrived here 13 years ago to develop a sourcing hazelnut project for Caronut. Caronut is a packager of Costco in the United States. They are based in Fresno, California. And we start to export for first time in the history of Georgia hazelnuts from Georgia to United States. And after we put the Georgian hazelnut in the most important marzipan industry in Germany. But in 2016, 17, started the Parasana issue, and we put the project in standby at the present, because the Parasana made many issues in quality and in volume. It was very difficult to develop an important sourcing project like we were working in this time. No?
Given that we jumped to Parasana issue, let's continue with that topic, because it, as you just mentioned, it appeared in 2016. It's 2024.
Yeah.
Now it's still an issue. Is it too late, in your opinion, to intervene? If no, how should the government and the private sector intervene? What should be done in order to eliminate this issue once and for all?
Parasana is possible to fight, but it's necessary to change the strategy. The strategy in the beginning was with the focus that some international organizations gave support to the government, and these international organizations like FAO, they did not have enough experience to manage that. For that reason, still Parasana works, and still Parasana is doing or is making a bad quality and bad and low volume, because many part of the harvest does not arrive to the factories, fall in the farms, because the Parasana bite the hazelnut, and in this hazelnut that was bitten for the Parasana, enter fungus, enter bacteria, and fall. And it's a big issue. It's very pity, but it's real. And as well, the economy of the West Georgia has many issues and problems as well, because the economy does not can grow as we had in the past in 2016, 15 or 14. That the Georgian hazelnut was in the top of the second or third export products in Georgia.
But
I would
now,
like here,
yes,
sorry.
Yes, please.
We were actually the first company who opened up, as Blai mentioned, who exported Georgian hazelnuts in USA. And not only in USA, we have also opened markets in Germany, France, Spain, and some other Baltic countries as well. And it is very important whenever you're operating in a premium class market, it is vital to produce high quality products and high quantity. And therefore, because of the lack of experience and knowledge of managing orchards industrially in large scales, it affected heavily on the Georgia's production and Georgian nuts.
Let me ask you about the export potential. If the Parasana pest issue remains at the level which it is today, if it's not treated, how will this affect the export quantities, the volume, price as well of Georgian hazelnuts?
Now, for example, now the volume of the volume is lower than the previous volumes that we had. The quality as well is very low. For example, in international market, the standards is 2% of rotten in every lot, okay? And the Georgian companies only can offer 3%, 4% of rotten.
That's the lowest.
Yes, is lower. Plus insect bite. Insect bite, the percentage of insect bite of the Georgian hazelnut is higher than in other areas or locations, okay?
Even though Georgia's production now doesn't meet the requirements from premium class, there is still huge interest on Georgian nuts generally from the Western markets, and therefore exactly our company's main goal and idea is to possibly look for Georgian and cooperate and work with Georgian nuts projects, where our agronomical team will lead these daily operations and protocols, and our international experts will be the leaders of these projects. And after successfully obtaining the harvest, it is possible to renew negotiations and talks for possibly exporting Georgian nuts into Western markets.
So just to clarify, you act as a consultant party that consults businesses on nut production, or?
Yes, we are working in nuts sector like a consultant and in industry, agriculture, and in sourcing as well, and sales in Europe and in United States. We cooperate with one company, Farmer Gates in New York, that is a capital fund. Capital funds in Europe like Mirova or FinFound. And our job is to develop projects and management, like in Green Pots. We are developing organic almonds and olive project in Spain and in France with a French capital. And as well, we evaluate or we work with a capital funds to evaluate investments of nuts that they would like to enter like an investor. and we have long experience on a big scale. We evaluate projects that 6,000, 7,000 hectares, 8,000 hectares of nuts. We evaluate projects in Bhutan, we evaluate projects in Portugal, in Spain, in California, and we have long experience about that. I started to work with nuts 45 years ago.
Oh, wow.
And shortly, I would like to add that our team is based in Georgia, but also we have a great relationship with Spanish companies, which they specialize in drawing and designing the project and its irrigation system. And also, we are cooperating with one of the highly innovative technological company that uses drones and AI, where you can get scientific information on the database and to have scientific exact points. For example, the fields and the departments needs to be improved in the orchard itself.
Yeah, agri-tech is also a big sector within technology, so it's very nice to see. And also, as you just mentioned, you basically provide not only consultancy but big expertise and network as well. I'd like to ask you, what is the feedback you get from your international partners about the quality of nuts in Georgia, and what are the main challenges except for Parasana? I understand that Parasana is a big issue, but except for it.
Georgia has incredible skills, perhaps one of the best in the world, from my professional opinion, because Georgia has a good volume of water that in the Mediterranean countries that is possible to develop nuts. It's an issue because there is not enough water in these countries, and Georgia has good volume of water, has good quality of water, very, very good quality for irrigation. And as well, Georgia has incredible soils, and it's very difficult to find these soils in Spain and Portugal. We don't have this quality of soils. You can imagine, in Sagarejo, I am carrying out a walnuts project, and the plot has 7% of the organic material in the soil. In Spain, when we have 1%, is a rich soil. Okay. And as well, Georgia has climate, because, for example, these good soils we can find in Poland or in Ukraine or in Russia, but these countries, they don't have the climate that have Georgia. Georgia has everything for being one of the most important areas in the world for developing nuts projects. Hazelnuts, almonds, and walnuts, as well pecans, and as well it's possible in some areas of Georgia to develop pistachios. But with enough technology and knowledge and operations work.
When we are speaking of premium class market players, it is vital to understand that they need big volumes. We need to be able to produce high quantity and high quality products. Therefore, most of the concerns that we usually get is that we are not able to fulfill this demand, the amount of the high quality products necessary for their market.
Is this because the market is fragmented, meaning that there are a lot of small players, small individual farmers, or there is some different issue?
No, small players or small farmers is not bad for the sector. It's good as well. There are some parts of the world, in Italy or in Spain, that we have seen in other sectors like olive oil sector, or in nut sector as well, that it's possible to work and to have a good and commercialize the volume of the small farmers with the technical support that they need. No? It's possible. For example, in hazelnut sector in Georgia, the majority of the sector is with small farmers in San Negrelo and Guria. No? But it's good. It's possible to have good quality, but they need enough technological support, technical support, and as well they need the necessary processing lines and to fight the Parasana issue in this case. The almonds and walnut sector in Georgia is different. The majority of the almonds and walnuts projects, these projects are in a big scale. They are projects that 200, 2,000 hectares include, or 500 or 100 hectares. These projects are in different situations because they started these projects in walnuts, almonds 7 years ago, 6 years ago, and they did not calculate well the correct COPEX and the correct CAPEX, no? And they developed the project without enough financial knowledge and operation works. And they thought that there will be easy to develop these projects. And now, after 6, 7 years, they are looking or they are seeing that they don't have the profit that they expected because they did some errors or structural errors that now appear. Because when you make an error in agriculture, you don't see after 6 or 7 years. It's not like in other sectors, in industry or in service, that you have the error now and you can see the error now and you can fix the error in 1 week, for example. No? In agriculture, it's different. You see and you are conscious about your error when it's 6 or 7 years, and sometimes it's too late. And this is at the present the main problem that we see in Georgia with the almonds and walnuts projects.
And this is what I would like to emphasize on as well, that managing farmer, like family farm, is totally different than managing industrialized orchard. This is the reason that we collected a team from outside of country as well to have these international experts and to manage daily operations and protocols of industrial orchards, because it is totally different managing larger scale projects rather than family owned orchards.
One of the main difference between the small and big enterprises is access to capital, because usually small farmers tend to have lower access to capital, which is usually more expensive. Is this a problem that you see in the Georgian nut industry in general, access to capital, access to smart money, so-called, or if not an issue?
The problem is that the banks at the present, the more important banks, they start to see that some projects, big projects, no small projects, some big projects, they start to have issues, economical issues, because they cannot return the credits or the loans that they had in the past with the banks 6 or 5 years ago, because they did not make or they did not design the correct project for having or for returning the total investment. And this is the main issue, no? But I am sure that with the current management and the current knowledge, I mean in operation and in agriculture, Georgia can develop one of the most important nut sector in the world, because the resources like water or soils and climate is amazing, okay? And for example, when I arrived here and I chose this country for developing the sourcing project for Costco, for Caronat, I saw one variety of the hazelnut and Akluri that for me is the best tasting hazelnut in the world. For that reason, we chose this to start this project now in Turkey, and we start this project in Georgia. And for example, in one project that I was working like a consultant in Bhutan, a hazelnut project, they introduced the hazelnuts like a crop. Like in Bhutan, they did not have hazelnuts. They developed a project with 8,000 farmers, small farmers, very small farmers, and they introduced Italian varieties and Oregon varieties. And they did not have enough pollination, and they had many issues with pollination and other operation works, no? And I introduced an Akluri variety in Bhutan. In Bhutan, they have at the present one variety from Georgia and works perfect. And it's an example that Georgia has good varieties and as well good climate. Only needs to drive in the correct direction.
And my last question is about different types of nuts. We mainly talked about hazelnuts, but also, as you mentioned, in relatively smaller quantities, different types of nuts are produced, walnuts, hazelnuts, even maybe pistachios. You know, what's your take on those type of nuts? Should Georgia focus on them and develop them as a some sort of niche, or it should be more, the investment should be way higher there, or should Georgia focus only on hazelnut production?
No, Georgia, for example, Karli area or Kakheti area, it's possible to develop in some part. For example, in Alazani Valley, it's possible to develop hazelnuts, and already there are hazelnuts, as well walnuts, almonds. And in West Georgia, the climate is very wet, no? And it's more difficult, and management is very difficult. But it's possible to have a good result. More expensive than in dry areas, like if we compare with Kakheti or Karli area, but it's possible. As well, the Samegrelo-Anguria area, the tasting is amazing for this concrete climate that Samegrelo-Anguria have, no? And they impact in the tasting of the hazelnut in Georgia. It's possible, but there are two important focus. One, in West Georgia for hazelnut to fix the Parosana issue that is possible to fix with the core recuperation works. And second, in East Georgia with the almonds and walnuts to work in a different way. At the present, the last 6 years that the projects are very young, almonds and walnuts projects was designed for the suppliers. And when the project is designed for the supplier, not for a professional with a big experience, the supplier only give you that they have, not that you need. And we have seen in many projects. And they are making issues, they fix the issue. But in this way, that is not the correct way, they forward the break-even point. The break-even point never arrives. And this is the main problem. And now we can see in almond sector, it's very clear, and a little bit in walnuts, people start to see that it's difficult to have quality in walnuts, because one concept is to produce, and after is to produce but with quality. Because if you produce walnuts with not good quality, it's for pricing, it's not commercial. And these concepts in this young sector, I mean almonds and walnut sector, many investors, they start to see that it's not easy and it's necessary to make some change. No? And it's, let's see, but I hope that in medium term, short term, we'll see much better results. Okay?
As Blai said, I don't think Georgia needs to focus on one specific nut, because I would like to repeat myself that our companies that we have been previously working with are still expressing their interest on all kinds of Georgian nuts. It can be almonds, it can be walnuts, hazelnut, it don't matter.
Or pecans, for example.
Pecans. But the main issue that I have to repeat myself again is that we need to raise the level of production. We need to raise the quality and quantity, and once the harvests are successful and we become to that level, then it will be easy to offer them our products and possibly export Georgian nuts. So I don't think we should solely focus on one specific nut.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Good luck to your enterprise.
Thanks.
And thank you very much for shedding some light on the Georgian nut industry, which is very important for our country.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks.
Thank you.
More on business from our reporter Natia Taktakishvili.
Valery Chekharyev, founder and CEO of SAD Project, declares that the state must take responsibility and quickly take steps to return to the EU pass. As he says, the current situation is negatively affecting both the country as a whole and the tourist industry. He told BMG TV that the hotel reservations are actively cancelled. The development of tourism requires a very stable environment. When the environment press covers what is happening in the country, the tourists see that they don't feel safe and avoid coming here. Even when the protests were small, many reservations were cancelled. I talked to my colleagues, and today I can confidently say that bookings are being cancelled very actively. New reservations are not received, which is very important for the new winter season. In addition, 50% of all income for the hospitality sector comes from conferences, events and restaurants. Nowadays, if we look at these facilities, they are empty. This is the responsibility of the state. They must de-escalate the processes. It will take at least 6 months to recover the cancelled reservations, Chekharyev says. According to him, he condemns the violence against peaceful demonstrators. EU accession shouldn't be stopped. This is the people's choice. We condemn all kind of violence. I am also standing at the rally and peacefully protesting all this, Chekharyev said. Sandro Shelia, CEO of the company CAI, declares that suspension of the strategic partnership by the US is the biggest blow to Georgia, which does not even compare to the personal sanctions. As Sandro Shelia told BMG, if relations with Western partners are not improved, Western investments in Georgia will stop and funds will only flow from undemocratic countries to Georgia. The US is Georgia's biggest friend, the country that has expressed the greatest support for our country. The EU has assisted Georgia not only in the financial direction, but also in terms of building our institutions. Accordingly, when your biggest friend tells you that I can no longer continue strategic partnership because your government is anti-democratic. This is a huge blow to Georgia. If the situation does not improve in the near future, Western aid and investment in our country will stop. Our financial assistance will be replaced by investment from Russia and similar countries. Imagine when the investments will only come from Russia or Belarus, said Sandro Shelia. Zurab Lalazashvili, managing partner of BDO Georgia, declares that the deterioration of relations between Georgia and West is a negative signal for Western companies and investors. As Zurab Lalazashvili told BMDG, if these processes continue, Georgia will find itself isolated from all Western allies. When our relations with the European Union have deteriorated so much, the US has suspended its strategic partnership. This is a signal to the foreign companies that something good is not happening in Georgia. If these processes continue like this, we will find ourselves isolated from all our allies. In this case, if we are isolated from them, only Russia will be left. Ultimately, our economy, companies and society will be tied to the space that Russia offers us, which is unacceptable. The only ones who prize us are Russian propagandists. All those who are supporters and friends of our country are criticizing us, and this means that something is developing in the wrong direction and something needs to be fundamentally changed, Zurab Lalazashvili said. Rezan Kikava, director of the exhibition hall Expo Georgia, declares that the doing business in Georgia is practically impossible. According to him, the government has embarked on path of evil. He notes that everyone, including those who are its supporters or have been neutral until now, should raise their voices against this. Today, doing business in Georgia is practically impossible when there is political confrontation and protest in the society. Although power is blinding, I still hope that common sense exists. If we focus on the East, and perhaps they have this plan, then we will not be able to use all the resources of the large Western institutions that we have been using so far. The Asia Development Bank will probably remain the only one with which the question also rises, how cooperation will continue. The government is our representative in the international community, which is not recognized by major countries of the world. In addition to political legitimacy, there are reputational issues, and how can we expect quality capital to enter the country under such a government, he said. Lisi Development firmly stands by the Georgian people and condemns any kind of violence against free speech. The company Lisi Development echoes the ongoing processes in the country. In a statement released on social media, the company writes that Georgia's place is in Europe. Lisi Development's values are based on European principles. Since its establishment, Lisi has been trying to implement Western standards in all its activities. The company has been cooperating with leading European companies for many years, which brings experience and knowledge to Georgia. Georgia's cultural and historical identity is inseparable from Europe, and we are proud to maintain this connection in our activities. Georgia's place is in Europe. Lisi Development firmly stands by Georgian people and condemns any kind of violence against free speech, the statement reads. Georgian brand Much and Much, whose products are sold in Europe and America, writes that due to the events taking place in Georgia, Much and Much has suspended the launch of its e-commerce. Due to the events taking place in Georgia, Much and Much has suspended the launch of its e-commerce, which was planned for December 4. We cannot celebrate a very joyful event for us when our country is in trouble. Georgia always will be part of Europe, the company writes. Much and Much was founded in 2012 by sisters Nina and Kwanza Macharashvili. The brand is based in Tbilisi and its clothes are worn by Hollywood stars. Company Optio, a customer data platform for banks, is responding to the current events in the country, noting that it stands by Georgia's brave fellow citizens. According to them, the place of Georgia has always been and will be in Europe. Freedom has always been a vital part of Optio's culture, as we believe that only free individuals can create valuable products, build great companies and bring positive changes to their country. Optio is a great example of how the West helps Georgia create a better future with knowledge, experience and capital. Without this support, Optio would remain an unrealized idea. We wouldn't be able to create product, employ extraordinary people and simplify our customers' daily processes. Today, as Georgia's unconstitutional and self-proclaimed government brutally oppressing innocent people and depriving the country of its future, we as a company and as individuals stand by our brave fellow citizens and fight for a better future for our country, because the place of a free Georgia has always been and will be in its historical home in Europe, this statement reads. Insurance company Unison responds to the developments in the country and states that Unison supports Georgia's aspiration to join European Union. Georgia's European integration is our proven historical choice. We condemn any violence directly against the will of the people. Unison became a member of European Business Association Georgia precisely against the backdrop of recent events, and accordingly we declare that we remain committed to Georgia's European and Euro-Atlantic integration. Georgia's place always will be in Europe. Vasil Akhrakhadze, General Director of Unison, made a statement on behalf of the company. Barambos Ice Cream has issued a statement regarding the current events in the country. Barambos supports all citizens who are fighting to defend freedom and the European choice in these difficult times. Our doors are open to welcome you with hot drinks and sweets at the Barambos location on Melikishvili Avenue. Georgia's European integration is Georgia's choice. It's the statement released by the company Barambo.
I want to wrap up today's The Checkpoints with Irakli Kobakidze's interview with BBC's Steve Rosenberg, leaving you off with the extract from BBC's coverage for some thought, and see you next Sunday.
Many of the protesters have said to me that by suspending until the end of 2028 Georgia's bid to join the European Union, you have stolen, your government has stolen their European dream, their European future. People feel betrayed. Can you understand that?
The response is very clear. So we have not suspended anything related to the European integration. It's just a lie. And there are the opposition leaders, there are the media outlets linked with the opposition who are just lying to these people.
But you suspended this until 2028.
No, it's not true. It's not true.
Really? Here's what he said 3 days ago.
Today, we have decided not to put the issue of opening negotiations with the European Union on the agenda until the end of 2028. We also refuse any budgetary grants from the European Union until the end of 2028.
It was that announcement that sparked the protests.
The Checkpoints is presented by pharmaceutical company GM Pharma.